This is the Monsgeek M3, the TKL offering from Monsgeek's M series lineup, and having used it for a couple of weeks, my mind is pretty much made up that the Monsgeek M series are the best value keyboards on the market right now. Thanks to Monsgeek for sending this one over for a review. Check out the affiliate links and discount codes in the description to get some money off any of the Monsgeek lineup. There are also links and discount codes down there for a bunch of other vendors. Of course, it's a big statement to make that the Monsgeek M series are the best value keyboards on the market, especially when you consider how inexpensive some of the current crop of group buy keyboards are. But I have the M1 with a budget build out and now the M3 with a high end build out, and nothing else in my collection hits the same in terms of value for money. The M1 is the 75% version and starts at just $100 as a bare bone. The M2 is the 1800 compact version and starts at just $110, and the M3 is the TKL version, which also starts at $110. For those very modest prices, you get the Gasket mount bare bone keyboard with its standard specification, which is the full CNC aluminium case with the brass side accents, the 1.2mm Hotswap South facing PCB with full per key RGB and no flex cuts. You get a polycarbonate plate, screw-in stabilizers, and you get a good selection of dampening, which includes case foam, a switch mat, and plate foam. In the box, you get the fully assembled keyboard with a dust cover, a custom cut tape mod sticker, the screw-in stabilizers and screws, force brake mod stickers, a coiled cable, the manual, and the spare fasteners and gaskets. Monsgeek also offers some extras for the M series lineup. For the M1, you can buy a flex cut PCB and FR4 POM and aluminium plates. For the M2 and the M3, you can buy FR4 and POM plates, and I assume that selection will increase in line with the M1 over time. For our build today, I'm going with a set of Keyputt Tropical Waters V2 and the awesome GMK Gregory keycaps with the black and yellow extras to make it an all black on yellow set. To run with the screw-in stabilizers it comes with, we obviously need to fully disassemble the keyboard, so we flip it over and unscrew the 10K screws securing the top case to the bottom, then flip it back over and remove the top case. Next we tilt up the plate and PCB, unplug the daughter board from the PCB and lift out the plate and PCB assembly. In the bottom of the case we have the dampening, and under that we have the sticky plastic sheet which can be used to isolate the bottom of the case from the PCB to make sure it doesn't short out. I still need to disassemble the plate and PCB for installing the screw-in stabilizers, but before that I'm going to do some of the prep work to save desk space. First I'm going to install the force brake mod stickers. I know from the M1 that you need these to stop that nasty case resonance. I installed them under the 6 flush screw holes, then later I cut small squares out of the stickers and installed them in the corners. I did that off camera on the second configuration. Next I installed that plastic sheet in the bottom case. I'll likely run with case dampening, making this less important, but I'm going to install it in case I do want to run without case dampening in a different configuration later on. Next I lubed and assembled the stabilizers. I balanced the wires and applied my usual lube job, which is Krytox 205 grade 0 on the outside of the stems and inside of the housings. Then I lubed the wires with dielectric grease. With that done, we're ready to disassemble the plate and PCB. You just unscrew the 6 screws from under the PCB and separate the PCB, the switch mat, the plate dampening, and the plate. Next we need to install the stabilizers, and one point to note is that when you use the switch mat, it is cut under the stem to give a nice clean bottom out on the stabilizers, but the housings do land on it, so it acts like kind of a shim for the stabilizers. If you want to run without the switch mat, when installing the stabilizers you won't be able to get the screws to tighten down all the way against the plate, as the stabs must be for a 1.6mm PCB. During my second configuration, which I didn't film, I removed the switch mat and used the extra force brake mod stickers with the holes in them as washers for the stabilizers to get them to tighten down properly. With the stabilizers in, we move on to assembly. First we need to stack up the plate and PCB assembly. Obviously I'm running with the switch mat on this configuration and also the plate foam. Next I installed the switches needed to test the stabilizers and tested them to check for any issues. All's fine there, just a little more lube is needed, so I'll syringe lube later on. Next we plug the daughter board back into the PCB and land the plate and PCB assembly in the case. As you can see, I'm running both case dampening pads. I tried it with just one, but I don't like the way the plate and PCB moves around on the silicone gaskets with less dampening in there. Next we pop the top case back on, flip over the keyboard and install the 10 case screws to secure the case back together again, then flip it back over. Before moving on, I syringe lube the stabilizers. I always aim to syringe lube the top of the wire, as you tend to get rattle between the top of the wire and the top of the stem. Lubing underneath the wire too much just extrudes the lube out the bottom of the stem and messes with the bottom out. Finally, we install the rest of the switches and the keycaps. So to summarize, for the first configuration, we have all the dampening in, including the switch mat. I've balanced and lubed the stabilizers, and the Keep-Hut Tropical Waters V2s have an awesome factory lube job, so I've not done anything to the switches. During the typing test, we'll be comparing the first configuration to my final configuration, and the only difference is the switch mat is removed in my final configuration. And there we have it. It sounds awesome in both configurations, but the keyboard naturally has a deeper tone, so I don't feel the need to run the switch mat or the tape mod. If you like creamy keyboards, I imagine all the dampening plus the switch mat plus the tape mod would make an insanely creamy build, but for me it's just right without them. This is such a nice typing keyboard for the money. The Gasket does a nice job of softening the typing feel, and the well-chosen components and dampening plus that solid aluminium case make for a wonderful sound profile. Not flex cutting the PCB is a big win, I think, helping to create that rich and deep sound profile even with the thinner 1.2mm PCB. The polycarbonate plate also helps with this and is a better stock choice than aluminium for me. The case is just so nice for the money. The design is kept fairly minimalistic, and it's got these huge bezels for a heavy and chunky feel, with the rounded edges giving a softer look which lines up nicely with the typing feel. The embellishments are simple but effective, with the brass coloured sidebars in the cutouts and the very nice and understated Monsgeek logo CNC'd onto the bottom. Having now done a budget but nice build out on the M1 and a high-end build out on the M3, I can safely say the M series will bring out the best in a well selected but modest build out, but high-end switches and keycaps also feel and look right at home, so you can really go either way. If I had a fixed budget of say $300 for a keyboard, I would for sure build out a Monsgeek M series keyboard with GMK keycaps and a nice set of switches, instead of stretching the keyboard budget to $200 and leaving only $100 for the build. The silver case is also a really safe bet for any build, as silver goes with everything, so you have no limits on what keycap colours you can go for. I'm also happy to report that the flaw I found with the original M1, which was the JST port colliding with the bottom case, has been resolved by making the cutout in the bottom case larger, and this has been resolved across the entire M series, including an update to the M1 design. Again, there isn't much out there that's better value for money than the Monsgeek M series in my opinion, and if TKL is your layout, the Monsgeek M3 is an absolute peach of a keyboard for the very modest $110 price tag. And that's it for this one. In the next video, I'll be reviewing the Womia G75, so I'll see you then.